Alright, what's up everybody? It's your boy Akeen and welcome to today's vlog. There are 5 particular players that were on the chopping block this past week in fantasy football. 5 players who I believe and many believe had their last chance to see if they would still be on your respective fantasy teams or if you had to drop them. And I was going to give you guys an update and a final analysis of them so far this season. Now I'm going to start off with wide receiver Vincent Jackson of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's one of the 5 players whom I received a lot of concerns and question marks. Now, this past week, he did post up 9 points against the Pittsburgh Steelers, including the game-winning touchdown grab. Now, for each week during this whole season, he actually has increased 2 points. He went from 3 to 5 to 7 to 9. And with Mike Glennon back at the helm at quarterback, I strongly suggest you guys just to keep him as a good bench player, possibly a flex player, and who can even make it up to a starting wide receiver, your number 1 or your number 2. And the reason behind that is because since he already has a good chemistry with Mike Glennon and with Glennon at quarterback, I think that Vincent Jackson's chances of getting you more valuable points, at least double-digit points, could be key. And I think this could be a good fit for you guys. So I think for this past week, he passed this grade, and I think you should still keep him on your team as a sleeper wide receiver. Next player, LeSean McCoy out of the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, he has been playing terribly for the past 2 weeks, and it's not his fault. Now, last week he only posted 1 point against my San Francisco 49ers, and the previous week in week 3 only 2 points against the Washington Redskins. That's mainly because due to the lack of effort in the offensive line of Chip Kelly's offense. Also, just about every defense in the National Football League have been keying and focusing more on stopping LeSean McCoy in that Eagle offense and putting the ball in the hands of Nick Foles, who that's why he's been getting so many valuable fantasy points over the past season, beginning weeks of this season, talking about Nick Foles. But going back to Shady McCoy, this is LeSean McCoy who we're talking about. You cannot just drop LeSean McCoy. Maybe bench him a couple of times or use him as a flex player, but you cannot drop him. He is too valuable, and I think that Chip Kelly will use him a lot more on the offense. Also, Chip Kelly's offense hasn't been really dumping many passes towards his directions because the defense has been keying in on this particular running back. I still think you guys should start him this upcoming week as at least a flex player just to see how he performs, but he is not worthy of a drop because it is LeSean McCoy. He still has the skills and all the tools to become a dominant running back in the league, but the offensive line has been playing poorly, and that's why he hasn't been doing too well, so you cannot really blame LeSean McCoy. Next running back I need to talk about, Arian Foster of the Houston, Texas. Now, he's been dealing with a hamstring injury over the past 2 weeks, and he only had 6 yards rushing this past week on 8 carries. But 5 points in receiving this past week, which means he is still an excellent receiver outside of the backfield. Now, Alfred Blue, his backup running back, has been receiving more carries for the past couple of weeks, but I still think that Arian Foster is still a player that you should not drop and keep him as a starting running back for your team. Now, I think once he overcomes that hamstring injury, he will be a valuable asset in fantasy play. Next player I need to talk about, another running back, Eddie Lacy of the Green Bay Packers. Now, he finally stepped up this past week with 11 points, but it was pretty ugly. 48 yards on 17 carries, and he did have a touchdown, but he could have had a receiving touchdown had not been returned back due to a penalty. I think that Eddie Lacy is still a good player for your fantasy team and a player that you should stick with your team because of this performance, and I think because he's showing getting more bulk of the carries, he just needs to toughen it out a little bit later on in the season. I still think you should keep him on your team. And last, and certainly the least player, Tom Brady of the New England Patriots. So far this year, his best game was in week 3 where he posted up 13 points. And yesterday against the Kansas City Chiefs, he only had 4 points and 3 full quarters and some of the fourth quarter. But then Jimmy Garoppolo actually had to take over at the helm at quarterback, and he posted up 6 points in just the fourth quarter. That pretty much sums things up with Tom Brady. He's looking like he's starting to fade out, even though they don't have many weapons offensively, like really big weapons for New England's offense. offense, there's still not much of an excuse why the poor play of Tom Brady. He's been struggling in this season, and he's a definitely player that you should drop and try to trade him if somebody is brave enough and bold enough to select him. But I still think that everybody should drop him. He is not a player that you want on his team. So out of all the 5 players, keep Eddie Lacy, Arian Foster, LeSean McCoy, and Vincent Jackson more as a sleeper and a flex player. But then you have to definitely drop Tom Brady. He has been playing terribly throughout this season. Player you should definitely drop. Now, the next time I'm going to catch you guys will be on Thursday, where I will talk about Thursday night's matchup. But I believe it's between the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings, in which I will give you some fantasy tips for that. And then I will catch you guys on Saturday for week 5 of the football season. Thank you for watching today's blog from the Football Source. I'm your man, LeSean McCoy. Be easy.